Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connected to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the All About the Game podcast presented by The Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Taybor Pepper, an NFL long snapper, having most recently played for the Miami Dolphins. He is currently a free agent and in his downtime, a growing Twitch streamer. Taybor is in an exclusive club as one of 30 to 50 people in the entire world who gets paid a salary to be a professional long snapper. We sat down at the Ultimate Gamer studio experience in Miami and jumped into a discussion that revolved around Taybor's football background. He played a number of positions during his career before college and became a true long snap specialist while at Michigan State. He dove deep into the science behind long snapping, including the stress of the position and the precision involved in perfecting the exact same number of ball rotations per yard every single time he snaps the ball. We discuss practice, the exclusivity of the profession, and the uncertainty of free agency before moving on to the topic of gaming. Taybor has been a long-time gamer and has developed a strong following on Twitch. He shared his secret behind balancing football, streaming, and his home life schedule, and talked about mobile gaming in NFL locker rooms. It really is all about the game. Please join me now for my conversation with Taybor Pepper.
So the first thing I just heard you talking to Rick about was the fact that you got released.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just get into that, man. What's that like?
So the past year, it's kind of gone. In January of 2019, I signed with the Giants, and then all off season I was with those guys competing against a 13-year vet, Zach Diassi.
All right, wait. I gotta stop you for a second because I want you, before we kind of go into that. Dude, I want you to rewind us back to how do you become a long snapper? I think you know what I mean. Before we kind of jump into, let's get to that at the end. When you were playing back in high school, and when you're playing, did you start Pee Wee? I started Pee Wee and junior Pee Wee.
I've been playing football since first or second grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it one day you're hanging out and you've got a Nerf ball and you snap it to your dad or something?
So,
and he's hey, you should be a long snapper.
Yeah. So growing up, I was the QB, star guy on my team, and it was so weird how it happened in 6th or 7th grade. I was like, it's too much pressure. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be a quarterback anymore. Just make me a receiver or something. So I kind of dropped that. But in 6th grade, that was when.
What was the pressure, by the way? Did you put that on yourself, or was your team really good, or something?
I think it was mostly on myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was just a lot to digest as a kid, and I don't know. It was just.
It's just not for me, whatever.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, it's going from quarterback to being a specialist. The long snapper, punter, and kicker are in the most pressure-filled situations.
I know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
It did make a whole lot of logic.
Yeah.
So I started playing flag football in 1st and 2nd grade, and then 5th grade was the first year of tackle football when I lived in Oklahoma, and I was quarterback my whole life. And
so you're growing up in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when I was born in Illinois, and then when I was 6, I moved to Oklahoma.
Okay. And Oklahoma's huge football country.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about when I moved to Michigan, actually. So, in 6th grade is when we started punting in kind of the Little League Pop Warner. We called it FOR in our town, Future Owasso Rams. That was our high school team. So that was, I guess everywhere else it's called Pop Warner. Yeah. But so we started punting, and my dad grabbed a couple kids, and he was like, well, just throw it back with 2 hands, and that's that. Because in 6th grade, you don't really focus on punt that much. It's just kick the ball out. So really all my dad taught me was do it with 2 hands. So fast forward to 8th grade, it was in the summer. That was the first year of school ball. And we were in the summer during summer camp. And I think it was a week or 2 into training camp. And our coach goes, if you want to be the long snapper, come over here. and there were like 10, 15 kids my age, and he's like, all right, get in the line, and I'll start snapping to each
that
other.
Many kids want to be long snapper?
I guess. I don't think they knew the stigma around the position yet. So he was walking down the line, and everybody was doing it with one hand, and he went, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, Pepper, you're hired, because I was the only one doing it with two hands. So from then on, I told my mom, I'm a long snapper now, and she went on Google and found a long snapping camp that was in Texas that summer, and I went to it, and I really, really liked it. And then basically
I had no idea there was a long snapping camp.
Yeah, from then on, it was
So how many kids
history.
were at that camp?
So back then it was really, really small. There used to only be like 10 to 15 long snappers there.
Right.
Now the instructor that I went to all through high school, it's 50, 60, 75 kids at each camp.
And when you talk about a camp, like how long's a camp?
Usually the regional ones are on Sundays, and they go from like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Really?
And it's like in the morning is all instruction, and then you go to lunch, and then there's like a film session.
Okay.
And then it's competition at the end.
Okay.
And he has them all across the country, and he just
yeah,
teaches
so the
kids how to long
competition at
snap.
the end really puts you on the spot to give you a little bit, because
And-
that's got to be so much of it.
Yeah,
right? So much
because
of
everything's about recruiting now.
Okay.
So he teaches you in the morning, and then for the kids who are older who want to get recruited to play in colleges, the competition is only part of his ranking thing, because he watches you throughout the day to see. I mean, he's with these kids from now 6th, 7th grade all the way to their senior year of high school. So he's ranking them all throughout the year, all throughout the camp.
Right.
And then the competition is just to see how kids react under pressure and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. So I want to talk a little bit about the pressure, but what's the difference for a long snapper? What's the difference from like a field goal or an extra point to a punt, because it's 7 or 8 yards compared to 15 yards?
Right. It's for field goals, it's more exact. And when you get to the NFL, you have to control where the laces go.
Right.
So when the holder catches the ball, the laces need to be facing up towards the sky. So when he places the ball down, the laces are facing towards the
goalpost.
The goalpost, because if the kicker kicks the laces, it can send the ball wonky ways.
Right. So you actually control the number of rotations that the ball goes around?
Yeah, it's 2.5.
What?
Yeah,
really?
In 8 yards.
See, I didn't know that. Like when we start,
teams,
we're going to start talking about this. I was like, all right, I want to ask him some questions about long snapping, but I had no idea that it got down to that much of a science.
Yeah, when you get to the NFL, you have to be able to control the rotations.
Wow.
Because it just makes the operation that much faster.
Yeah.
I
was a holder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I played corner, and I was a quarterback in high school.
So
and running
you know
back,
how you
but I
would
was a
spin
holder.
it?
Yeah, you always had to.
In the NFL,
when you snapped it, it was
you're
just
not
kick, put it
supposed
down.
to.
Right?
We're not supposed to depend on the holders to spin it.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's tons of guys who have the ability to snap and block on punts in the NFL, but if you can't get the laces right on your field goals, then you really don't have a shot.
Wow.
So that was probably the biggest learning curve going from college to NFL.
Right. So we're talking about pressure. Mm-hmm. So what do you remember a specific game or a specific time when you were like, holy shit, there's a lot of pressure on me right now? Because again, that's one of the things about that position. It's thankless.
Yeah, like completely.
Nobody knows or really, and I don't want to say nobody cares, man, because
no, nobody cares. Nobody cares except for my girlfriend or my parents, or
unless you make a bad snap.
Exactly.
And then like everybody, like so.
So that, I mean, going out there just on a normal punt play is enough pressure on its own, because if I sail it over the punter's head, that changes the game anyway, no matter how much you're blowing out a team. But when it comes down to those last-second field goals, one that sticks out in my mind was my senior year. We were playing against Ohio State. I'm pretty sure it was College Game Day that game, so that was the spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
It was rainy all game, crappy weather, and there was 4 seconds left, and I think we were down by 2 points, and we needed to hit like a 43-yard field goal. And we went out there, and my mantra is, you can be a little nervous on the sidelines, talking about myself,
right,
but once you kind of jog out to go do your job, it's too late at that point. There's no point to having nerves once you're on the field. Right. I kind of got out all my jitters on the sideline.
Like,
in the zone, and I'm just keyed on the holder for when I need to snap. And in those moments, the other team will try to call timeouts to ice the kicker.
Right.
But there's kind of like an unwritten rule is if you can get a full operation off, even if they blow the whistle, do it. So we went out there and we knew they were going to call a timeout, so our kicker got set up quickly just so he could get a practice swing, and sure enough, we got one off.
Right.
And he made that one, and it was real close to the left upright. And their coach ran out, was yelling at the refs and stuff. Well, you should have called it faster.
Right.
So we ran the second one, and he made just the perfect adjustment, and it split the uprights completely.
Right.
And that was the year we went to the college football playoffs.
Yeah, what school again, man?
Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State. We got to give it a little love.
Yeah.
Spartans.
Michigan State.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that now because, again, ice the kicker, but you really have 3 people in that whole operation.
You have 3 people you're icing, yeah. And people focus on the kicker, but
they
it's
just talk about the
as
kicker.
bad for the long snapper, too.
But in a way, it's almost better that they do that because then it does take maybe a little bit of the pressure off.
Yeah. If you can just get a practice
right?
swing. I mean, it's like a
if
golfer.
I go out there and I'm the guy and I'm like, okay, Taybor Pepper's, the kicker's lined up over there. We got to ice the whole the snapper.
Yeah.
If they said that every time, then all of a sudden that would start to get in your head. Because the kickers, and I'm amazed. Who's the Ravens kicker that's just unbelievable?
Oh, Justin Tucker.
Unbelievable, right? Like
he's insane.
93% or something.
I spent some time with them when I got out of college. The Ravens invited me out for a mini camp. Actually, Coach Rosberg, who was a special teams coach there for a very long time, I give him a lot of credit because I wouldn't have been able to make it to the NFL had I not gone to that mini camp.
Okay.
And I actually chose to go to another one. And then he called me and said, "Are you still available?" And I was like, "Well, technically, yes." He was like, "Well, we want you to come here.
Right.
We didn't think we would be able to get you here." So I switched. He has a couple of Michigan State connections, too. He was roommates with the basketball coach, Coach Izzo, in college. And his son played hockey at Michigan State, too, that I knew as well. So those little Michigan State connections were enough for me to kind of trust him, and I really do credit him with me being able to play in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking earlier about camp, right? Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about this. We're friends now, but I haven't really thought about the profession that you are as far as a long snapper. But when you're talking about camp, that was an 8-hour camp that you went to, and that is still being operated and run. And I can see how the way you broke it down. Okay, because I was like, what do you do for 8 hours? And I hope this isn't a week-long camp.
No,
right?
Yeah.
But for 8 hours you are. So you get there, you're doing the things like you said. You're 2.5 rotations. I mean, just spending time trying to learn how to snap the ball 7 yards, 2.5 rotations, and not just right to. And it's got to be a point too, like over the. There's no tee, but over like the ground.
The spot.
You got to hit them in an exact spot, right? And you want up here. But when you're talking about practice, like I was thinking about you at practice, like a lot of times people say, oh, the kickers are off there doing their own thing, But as a long snapper, what does practice look like to you during a week? Are you what film sessions are you going to, and then your training? Like there's a lot to it. You're a very very valuable part of the team, and if you do screw up, it can mess up the entire game, like you said. So like tell us a little bit about like a day. What happens for a long snapper?
So when you get to college and the NFL level, all of us realize as specialists, like, our job is so important, right? We get that. It's in our brains. It's what we do. We understand that. But when you get into film sessions and practice, there really is only so much we can do. So for film, we kind of need to pay attention to how the returner's going to return the ball. And in the NFL, it gets way more meticulous, but the coach just kind of tells us their idea of how we're going to deal with their game plan.
Right.
And then you just move on. I mean, our film sessions can literally be 5 to 10 minutes long, while linebackers and offensive linemen and quarterbacks, their film sessions could be all day. Like, they could just stay in the film room. There's only so much that we can watch. We can pick apart our own film of our form and stuff that we need to work on. But, I mean, when you get to the NFL level, it's like, oh, my foot isn't completely straight. I can fix that fine. And you just need to watch like 2 or 3 clips. You don't need to dissect film for an hour because it's just something that you need to go out, correct, and then check that film, and then you might be good for another month or two, and you might not need to fix anything. And then when it comes to practice, I don't know if you remember when you were a kid playing basketball and you were super, super tired. Some coaches would be like, well, don't shoot a ton of free throws because if you're tired, you're going to make up for it and mess up your form, right? It's all about the form. So in kicking, punting, and long snapping, it's all about the form as well. So you don't want to go out and snap, kick, punt 100 balls a day. If you can get 40 good balls, even 40 is a lot, honestly. If you can get 40 good balls, that's better than 100 balls, and 60 of those you're just exhausted.
Right, because in a game situation, you're really not going to go out there totally fatigued, right?
No,
because
not at all. Because I mean, maximum. I think the most punts I've ever been a part of in an NFL game was 9.
right, which is actually
9
a lot.
snap, which is a ton for an
Yeah,
NFL game.
Yeah.
I would say average is maybe 4 or 5.
Right.
I mean, there's some games where we hit 1. Just
Which
because
means
the
your team
way-
is doing well typically, or you're turning the ball over a ton.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, and in between, like even those 9 punts, in between real time is maybe 20 minutes in between each one. It's
Right.
not like it's an hour-long game, 4 15-minute quarters, but those games can take 3 hours sometimes. So there's long minutes of sitting on the bench, waiting, warming up a little bit, but you don't want to warm up so much that you're tired. It's such a it's a very
fine
balanced
line, kinda.
game, because if you don't do enough, then you're going to get sloppy, but if you do too much, then you're going to get tired and sloppy. So
Right.
it's a balancing act, and I mean there's still coaches in the NFL who might not know how to balance it perfectly. I mean, everybody, and that's the other thing, is some kickers and long snappers and punters are just completely different. I know there's some guys who, if they hit 5 good balls in practice, they don't want to hit anymore, because then they'll get into their own head if they mess up a little bit.
Right.
But then there's people who are basically just like drill masters who will hit 30, and the coach has to be like, stop it.
Enough.
Like, I'm taking the balls away and putting them in the ball bag.
Yeah.
And we'll walk off the field because they won't stop, because they're just in their own head. And I mean, they're in the NFL, so it works to a point, but you have to know when is enough and when to push yourself a little bit.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, like, on an extra point or a field goal, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, right? If one's blocked, you might have to like chase somebody down or something, right? But it doesn't. I mean, it's very infrequent that happens. But on a punt, I mean, your part. That's where you started talking about it. I was thinking about, okay, and that I could see watching, like you were saying, a returner in film, because you are one of the 11 guys at that time that is a defender.
Right.
Once the ball's kicked, you've done your job, but now you've got to go down and tackle. So have you, again, if there's 9 of those plays in a game, that's actually a lot. That's actually a lot of plays that you're involved in. And have you ever either made like just a great tackle, you're like, yeah, you got up and you just nailed somebody, or have you been, because when you're going down, other people are looking to take your head off to block you, right?
Yeah.
And they've eliminated some of that blind side stuff, but some of it probably still happens.
I've been playing long enough to where, I mean, almost everything has happened. There's always something new that you don't expect, but there's been a couple of great tackles that I've been a part of. The thing that I love the most is when you're in that kind of gray area where the punter can kind of pin it in the 5 to 10 yard line. I love it, because I've been known to get down. Kind of how I made my name for myself in college was getting down the field fast. So if we were in that gray area, I could get down there, and if we were within the 10 or the 5 yard line, I would just hop on the ball real quick and just down it right there, and that's most satisfying to me, because if you let it roll into the end zone, you're giving them a bunch of free yards.
Did you ever do one of those where you dove across the line and slapped it back?
I have a picture where I'm basically doing like the Jordan jump man, but it was so far out in front of me, I wasn't able to get it back.
It's still a great picture.
It was a great picture. I'll show it to you after this. It's one of my favorite pictures.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about gaming, but before we go there, and you're the position you're in, and just I think any athlete, right? Any athlete today, I want to talk to you about the mindset, the mentality of being a free agent and moving around. Like right now, we met a year ago, about 6 months ago, a year ago, Dolphin Business
that was
Combine.
like 2 months, or when was that? Early March?
January? Was it March?
Or was it?
It must have been before.
February. Yeah, it was right before quarantine.
Right before quarantine.
February, I think.
Yeah. So you get a house down here, and this is for, it's not just you, and it's not just long snappers. I mean, there's so many athletes that go through this, and I think even coaches go through this, because my wife's a realtor and she deals with them. So how do you go into like being in the business you're in, and then knowing that right now you're going to be trying out potentially for however. So by the way, you said something too that I want you to answer that question, but you're actually one of only 30 to 50 people in the world that does what you do.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't really thought about that. You know, I think about the NBA and how few players there are, but as a specialist, what you do, if you're a long snapper in the NFL, making money as a long snapper, it's 32 teams, right? You're one of 32 people in the world that does that job.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's interesting because, especially with specialists, people love to downplay what we do, but knowing that there's only 32 spots and twice. I've been one of those 32 people, once for the Packers and then with the Dolphins this past year. I mean, it's special. It's everything that I've worked for, really. So when I do get to step out on the field, even competing for a spot when I was with the Giants, it's still so special because, I mean, there's tons of guys who graduate college that'll never see a field again in a playing field, really. They might go and coach in college or coach their high school team, go back to their hometown.
But not play at the NFL level.
Yeah, so I'm super thankful, even for getting tryout opportunities. Just being able to snap in front of people is really what I like to do. And on top of that, being able to wake up and go to meetings, even though when we're in the middle of the season, we're kind of dragging our feet to get into those meeting rooms. Like, it's still just a blessing that I get to talk about football all day and go and lift with the team and go to practice every day. So I'm super thankful. But yeah, last year I played for the Miami Dolphins, and that was my first full 16-game season that I had played in the NFL. I graduated college in 2016. That first year out, I didn't sign with anybody. I went to a couple mini camps, but it's not the same as like going through training camp. I learned a little bit. That first year I wasn't with anybody, and then 2017 I was with the Packers. Their guy got hurt, and then I played for them for 4 games, and it looked like I was going to finish out the season, but coming back from our bye week, I got hurt during practice. My right guard stepped on my foot and broke it, so I went on IR. Then the next year, 2018, I went on a bunch of tryouts, but nobody signed me. And then January 1 of 2019, the Giants signed me. I went in and competed for the job there against Zach Diassi, who's like one of my really great friends. I don't have like a lot of role models in my life, but Zach is definitely one of them. And we were competing for the same job, which it was really special. He taught me a lot. He's retired now. He retired at the end of this season.
Okay. How many years was he in the NFL?
13.
So
yeah, 2 Super Bowls.
So he did what we're talking about that name actually sounds really familiar to me.
His dad is Steve Diassi. He was a linebacker all over the NFL as well. So learning from him and the dynasty that he has was really cool. So I ended up getting cut on the final cut day from the Giants at the end of training camp. Drove home 9 hours to Michigan, and then the very next day, the Dolphins called, invited me down, and signed me, and I played the whole season.
You think that was just kind of like coincidence, or did the teams talk and like the Giants said, hey, this guy's a good player? Or
I think all the coaches are watching film. All that preseason film is super important. It's crazy especially when you're a specialist trying to make it in the NFL. The NFL game film is the most important, even if it's preseason. For some reason, the coaches just stock that higher than the rest of it. Like I'm one of 4 people who hold the Michigan State record for most consecutive starts. Okay. Which coaches like that, but at the same time, that doesn't really mean anything if you haven't played an NFL game.
Like 40 games, 42,
54.
Oh man, because of all the
bowl games.
Yeah, all the bowl games and everything. So you started as a freshman.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Yep. Never missed a game. There was one. My freshman year, actually, I played against Eastern Michigan on Saturday and got admitted to the hospital on Monday because I had contracted MRSA in my leg. Right. Stayed the night there and then ended up playing against Notre Dame on the next Saturday. Wow. So I'm glad that I didn't have to miss a game my freshman year, or else I would have been out of that record. But that was probably the craziest.
That's Ironman. Yeah, that is pretty good. And that was right there, your second game, basically.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So so you keep talking about that process, like as being a free agent right now, because I mean you're sitting here today, but your phone could ring in a half an hour.
Yeah,
right?
It really could.
Or like right now.
Yeah. What a lot of people, because there's a community that I kind of joined online, and they knew me from the point of being a Giant, because that was just where I was at when I joined the streamers community, right? Okay. And so when I got cut from the Dolphins, everyone was like, oh my God, are you going to get a job now? I was like, you guys don't realize that for 3 years before I was ingrained in this community, I had been a free agent pretty much those entire 3 years. So like, this is a feeling I'm used to, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing when someone's going to call. The coronavirus has really thrown a wrench in things, especially free agency. So I played for the Dolphins this season, and then on the last day of the draft, they drafted a long snapper, ended up cutting me the next day. And because
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But I wonder. So when your last year when you played all 16 games, was there a bad game? Did you have a bad snap or anything?
No.
So why would they take a draft choice to
I don't
do
know.
that?
There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of political reasons.
Okay.
There wasn't a point in last season where anyone could point and be like, "That's why you got cut." I mean, at all. I especially since it happened, I've dissected the film so much, and I've shown it to people who know what they're talking about too, and they're like, "There's no rationale." But I digress.
Yeah, it was my question. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I was trying to remember the coronavirus, though. Everybody in quarantine right now, normally, well, I know for a fact the day after I got cut, I would have been on a plane to go work out for another team. Okay. But with quarantine and the way the NFL is handling it, which I see no issue with how they're handling it thus far, teams can't bring anybody out to try out. The big name players, they'll get signed without a workout just because there's so much fun. Cam Newton, Tom Brady, the Bucs don't need to see Tom Brady work out to know they want to sign him, right? But with long snappers, punters, and kickers, they almost always have to see you before they sign you. So, I mean, within 30 minutes of the Dolphins drafting that guy, I had another GM call my agent and say, "Hey, we want to bring Taybor out. We don't know when, but just know he's on our list." Okay. So as soon as everything opens back up, he's going to be flying out. And since then, I've had 2 more teams call me as well. Okay. So I have a little short list. It's a good problem to have, but at the same time, if they all want to bring me out at the same time, I have to weigh out, how long has their guy been with the team? Has he had a couple crappy years in a row? Right. Who do I have the best shot of?
But kind of to our point earlier, there's 31 other teams, because not the Dolphins now.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, you never know what could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, he gets hurt or whatever, right? And I'm not. But you can pretty much do the homework on those 31 teams and those 31 guys. So like those 3 teams right now, you probably know in your head, okay, this is probably the best opportunity for me, and then this one and this one. But then if Team X called you, they could actually jump to number 1 because maybe they've got a guy that's in his 13th year.
Exactly. And then it can also come down to the money too, because when I signed with the Giants, I had 3 teams that wanted me, and this one team kind of upped how much the signing bonus was going to be. So I tell my agent that, and my agent calls the other 2 teams and like, "Do you want to up it? Do you want to up it?" So then there's that with the money, which makes it kind of weird. It's nice, but it's also weird because my ultimate goal is to get signed for the season. That signing bonus isn't anything compared to what the salary would be. So there's just a lot of math and kind of common sense also involved too.
Right.
Yeah. So I will say that's a crappy part of the quarantine happening, but a good part of quarantine for me, without quarantine, there's, all the guys on the team would be doing OTAs, so working with the team at the team facilities, getting all their work in with the team.
Yep.
Since everything's shut down and nobody's allowed to go inside the facilities, there's a ton of guys who are all across the country, punters and kickers, that live in Florida during the off season. Okay. So we've all been getting together twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. There's guys from the Bears, the Broncos, all over the place who are in South Florida, and we've been meeting up. And because I'm a free agent, I would have never been able to get this much work on my own with other professionals, guys who have the eye. And it's a nice little boost to my morale when I have a good day and I hear a couple guys like, "Hey man, like, there's one guy, I'm not going to say who, but they have 2 new long snappers on their roster that are going to be competing, and this guy flew back out there and worked with them, and he came back and he goes, "Man," he's like, "I wasn't super impressed, so if we get back all together and I don't like what they're doing," he's like, "I'm throwing your name in the mix." So those connections, that would never happen. Me getting all this work would never happen without quarantine, so I'm thankful for that. Because I wouldn't want to, I'm still friends with the guys at Miami, but I wouldn't want to hit up the Miami punter, Matt, and say, after he got a whole day of work in with the team, I don't want to be like, "Hey, could you come hold some snaps for me for 30 minutes? Like, I would never, I don't want to.
So where you go? Are you going to like Holiday Park? Do you go just pick a park and you go?
There's a couple places.
Or?
There's a place in Tamarack, and then there's a place like an hour north, close to like Boca.
Okay.
that we switch between, because some guys live up there,
Okay.
some guys live down here in Miami.
All right. And then you just go and you'll snap 30, 50 times. And then,
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
they're,
And I'm the only long snapper there, so I can get all the work that I want, which is nice. But we were talking about earlier, I have to remember, hey, slow it down,
Yeah.
because I want to snap every ball, because
Yeah.
I want them to see how I can do it. But at the same time, is when I start getting tired and they start kind of dragging a little bit, I just got to remember, I'm like, okay, I'll toss a couple, get a quick break, and then I'll go back out there. So it's a balancing act.
We talk a lot on the podcast about gaming and esports.
Mm-hmm.
We're in gaming and esports. There's two different ways that I kind of want to transition here, and I don't know which way is the better one. One was they're both part of the Dolphins Business Combine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love it if you shared a little bit about what you think about the Dolphins Business Combine and what Caleb Thornhill's done over there, because I think it's awesome. I run the deep dive in esports for the Dolphins Business Combine, and that's where you and I met.
Right.
And then, and I can share, but you can talk a little bit about that. We were at the house for Team Witness, and you actually did a long snap over the pool to one of the guys who then caught it while jumping in the pool.
Yep.
So I think this is a good way for us to segue into gaming and esports. Just talk about that Dolphins Business Combine experience, and do you get asked to do that kind of silly stuff frequently, like at parties and stuff, where you got to snap back a beer to
Sometimes,
somebody?
yeah. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I had never done that in college a couple times. So luckily it's slowed down a little bit, because I don't want to hit anybody in the head. But yeah, the Dolphins Business Combine was awesome. One of the main things that the NFL and NFLPA is trying to do for players now is, everybody's heard the statistic, X amount of players go broke after they are done playing football, and that's still true. There's still a lot, it's a sad statistic, but there's a lot of guys who, once they're done playing, they kind of blow all their money and don't have any skills other than being able to play football. So Caleb Thornhill is the player personnel director at player engagement director for the Miami Dolphins. He's also a Michigan State Spartan. He played there. He's an old guy, so so we kind of connected when I ended up at the Dolphins. That was a good connection to make as a Spartan, and then also just as a kind of a friend as well, a mentor. So what he's done is he's created this business combine for the players to go to. There's you were talking about deep dives. There's real estate, broadcasting, law enforcement. I mean, everything under the sun. And we go there for a weekend, and the first couple days are us just learning ins and outs. There's some overarching subjects, like real estate is still huge, and then entrepreneurship is the second one that everyone is a part of. And then in the afternoons, everybody picks 2 deep dives that they want to kind of get into the nitty-gritty details. And I saw esports, and I knew I had to do it. I had streamed on Twitch last year. That was something I wanted to do while I was before I was going to camp with the Giants. I had streamed a bunch and kind of learned that side of the esports business and made some pretty good connections. But yeah, I mean, our deep dive was fun. We got to go to Sucker Punch or
Ghost Punch.
Ghost Punch Studios. That was awesome. And then you said Team Witness was the house that we went to.
Team Witness, NBA 2K guys.
Yeah, that was crazy to see that these kids are playing 2K and they get to live in this mansion in Miami. And I mean, you saw the cars when we pulled up. It was like 2 Lambos and a Mercedes, and one kid was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to be too flashy, but it was like a Mercedes Benz. It was still $100,000 car, but yeah, I mean that was awesome part."
When you went there and you saw like their setup, their streaming setup, is that were there any learnings, like best practices that you learned from those guys? Because I know you're streaming now, and then if you want to talk a little bit about how you decided like what you wanted to stream, because obviously when you're a streamer, you want to pick something that you enjoy because you're gonna be doing it a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
So their setups were really, really sweet. One thing that I haven't done yet that is what they do is they hook up their console, because 2K is only on consoles. So they hooked it up there, so they're playing on a controller and they have it hooked up to one monitor. And they're monitoring stuff on the other monitor. Yeah. So that was pretty standard. I mean, their gear was top of the line. That's what I was most impressed with. one thing I'm doing right now is I'm completely revamping my office in the house that we got. So I just bought a new desk, and I'm going to get another monitor, and I bought a lot of sound equipment to kind of step that up. But what do you want me to?
Yeah, no. I was just asking you about the streaming, and then how you decided like what you want, what
the
you're
subject,
streaming.
yeah.
Because I think you had two different things that I saw that you were streaming, and one of them was just chat, which I never really. I really haven't been on it, but I know it's super, super, super popular.
Yeah.
And the thing that I saw that you had done was the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
that's right. Yeah.
You had done something on the draft, and you actually had some of the Dolphins colors behind you at that time and everything.
Yep.
So, yeah, like how are you determining you're getting into streaming? And I know when you and I spent some time together, you're a professional football player, but you also are a gamer and a streamer, and you see that as like something that you may potentially get into after playing football.
Yeah, so the NFL and pro athletes everywhere, especially the past decade, have really done a good job of instilling in the players building your brand outside of the sport you play, and it kind of ties in with learning new skills and how to monetize it for once you're done playing. So streaming was kind of my thing. I always liked gaming. I've been watching streamers since 2012 as my main form of entertainment. Like my fiance likes to watch E and Bravo and The Real Housewives.
Yeah, so who are some of your favorite streamers?
Yeah, so the very first streamer I ever watched was Lyric, and then I moved to like the League player. I'm a Cutie Pie, and then Soda Poppin', and I've bounced around a lot. And the question that you brought up was, how do you choose a game to play? Like I said, I'm a Cutie Pie was a former League of Legends pro, so he already had thousands of hours. So all he did all day was play League of Legends. And so when I started streaming, I kind of bounced around to a couple games. And the reason why I didn't settle on one game, so the guys who are insanely good at one game, they can create a wide audience because of how good they are.
People are just going to watch them because how good they are.
Because the level of play is like, you don't want to watch LeBron James play ice hockey.
Right.
You might for a little bit because it would be funny, but at the end of the day, he's not gonna compare to any pro hockey player, right? You want to watch him play basketball.
And a good example that was Jordan when Jordan went from basketball to baseball because
it's like it's a spectacle for a little bit, but it's not high level, right? So I knew I was not good enough at any one game to just kind of, we call it no life it basically, where you're just playing that game. So I didn't have the skills to no life any like League or CS:GO or whatever. So I knew, I had a feeling. I've always, I don't know, I don't want to like toot my own horn. I feel like I'm a pretty entertaining person. So bouncing the game to game, you can do like a single player game or like a team game like League or shooters or whatever. I felt like I could be my best self, like entertainment wise, bouncing from game to game. So I didn't want to land on one thing. If there's something I liked, I'd play it for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks. But I would always end up bouncing. And then the just chatting section is basically all you do is sit in front of your camera and the chat that's on the side, you just read chat and talk to them and they ask you questions. I mean, I've had multiple times where
that's super popular though, man. Like
it's one of the top
crazy,
categories on Twitch now is just chatting. It's just fun. Some people think it's boring because, Twitch is a gaming website, but it's so much more than that now. There's like people do arts and crafts, people cook on Twitch. It's really people. I know a couple guys have like full gyms in their garage and they hook up cameras and it's just them lifting.
Well, I was wondering why how you chose that, because when I talk about those 2K guys, the NBA 2K guys, one of the things they specifically did when they went to stream was they chose a title that they knew they were pretty good at, but that also didn't have that much competition in it. So like with Fortnite, there are so many people playing. Like you're saying, it's such a high level, it's tough to break in.
There's tons of people who are going to get buried at the bottom. Actually, that's what I did. So when you first start out streaming, to start to monetize it, you have to become an affiliate. It's basically just when you start, and then there's affiliate, and then there's partner, which is how you make the most money streaming. So becoming an affiliate is everybody's like first goal, and basically all you need is like an average of 5 concurrent viewers for over a week or something like that within a month.
Concurrent meaning for how long? 5
like
minutes,
just
10
the
minutes,
you just got to average 5 for about a week, for however like 8 hours a week or something like that. So I was like, man, like I don't know how I'm gonna get it playing League. There's so many League streamers. So I started Googling MMOs, so massive multiplayer online role-playing games.
Yeah.
I looked for ones that were in development that weren't completely released yet, and I found one called Crowfall. And apparently they have a pretty tight-knit community, and there were like 3 people streaming it on Twitch. So I bought it and downloaded it, and their development team tweeted out my stream that I was an NFL player playing their game, and boom, 30 viewers, like that. And for someone who had been averaging like 2 for the past 2 weeks, like getting 30, I was like, oh, what's up? And it's like, it's invigorating to see people in your stream and in your chat. That's the other hardest thing about starting out, is talking to a camera with not knowing if anyone's there is painful. I mean, I don't care how long you've been streaming.
Nobody's laughing at your jokes. Nobody's
interacting with you, but getting 30 people in there and then people asking you questions, like even one question every 2 minutes can provide content for hours. Like, and you just need,
just through the chat feature.
Yeah, you know, I would talk through the game, but there's only so much you can say. You can't just sit there and read all the text that's coming across your screen. It's just boring. Especially to people who play the game. So interacting with people in chat is honestly, it's my most favorite thing, and it's where I feel like my content kind of shines in terms of how I can provide worth.
And are you monetizing it now, and where are you today compared to like 16 or 18 months ago when you first started?
So when I first started, I was trying to do it as like a job, like something to really fall back on. When I ended up playing, I had to really pull it back quite a bit, because football is obviously time commitment, and that is my job. So I had to pull the reins back a little bit. It's been, you know, buying a house and everything that comes along with that. It's been a little bit hard to find time to regularly stream. And my thing that I tell my friends when they tell me to stream again is like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right and the best way possible. And to me, that's 8 hours a day, at least 5 days a week. And I just can't make that time commitment. You know, it's so, you don't get this. Like, you know, this is my first house, so I want my lawn to look really nice. So I've been like buying like grass seed and fertilizer and doing that all day, and landscaping, and it's like, it's kind of boring, but at the same time,
people
it's
don't
like,
realize home ownership, how much work there is.
Oh God, in this house,
there's always things that go wrong. But when you first move in, you want to turn it into your place. You want to paint, you want to do the lawn, you want to do this, you want to do that.
So when we were buying it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a killer office right off the bat. But there were a lot of projects that took precedence. So like. Yesterday, I was just at IKEA getting a new desk, getting all this stuff, ordering.
IKEA, I know. It's so much work.
I know. So I was building these drawers that I'm gonna stack the desk on top of right before I got here. So yeah, I'm finally getting to build out my office. So I might stream a little bit more, but right now, what I've been streaming is D&D. I do that every week.
Okay.
Dungeons and Dragons. It's super old school, and I can't believe it took me so long to play it, actually, because it's like my type of game completely, and it's awesome that you can do it online now. I think everybody has the vision of sitting at a table like this.
Yeah, man. When I was growing up, that was a big thing. That a lot of
so we use Roll20, which is basically a virtual tabletop, and the community is insane. It's still it's huge, and it's growing even more today. And there's tons of resources, map builders, and character drawings, and all sorts of stuff, storytelling. So my group of friends and I, we hired a dungeon master to run our games for us, and we run them twice a week. One session is our good session, where we play as good characters, basically, and that's on my channel, Taybor Snapping on Twitch. Every Monday at 7 p.m. And then we have an evil campaign where we play as evil characters, which is a completely different storyline, completely different characters, and that's on my buddy RNA's channel.
Does one of those get more play than the other?
They're about the same. It's about anywhere from like 10 to 20 viewers.
Okay.
And it's mostly because we just stream like once a week.
Then you said you moved into your new house, so I want to also talk about like the professional football players that you play with. I want to know like how some of those guys' gaming habits. You know, what's going on. I had a conversation with a single A baseball player just before you came on, and he kind of told me their experience. But you just talked about buying a new house. So domestically at home, girlfriend or wife? I can't remember.
Fiance.
Your fiance.
In the middle.
Yeah. So your fiance, like, how does she take your gaming habits, and do you find that you're ever like kind of walking the fence so that you're not upsetting her?
I think at first when I signed to the Giants, the bonus money I got, I used that money to buy a computer setup, a streaming setup basically. So I didn't have that when we started dating.
Right.
We had been dating about a little over a year before I got that. So I didn't have that the whole relationship. So when I got it, I had to explain to her, I was like, listen, like, I grew up gaming like this. You can ask my parents, like, this is really who I am. And the more that I taught her about kind of the gaming landscape, because everybody has the stereotypical idea of gamers. Yeah, I mean, it'll be like that for a long time.
Yeah, and I actually assumed, and I shouldn't have assumed. I assumed that your fiance wasn't a gamer. I mean, she could have been a bigger gamer than you.
She could have been.
Right?
She's not. She could have been. I think during quarantine, she was getting so bored. She's like, I want to do stuff. I was like, did you ever play a game on your computer in high school? And she's like, I mean, The Sims. I was like, can I buy it? Like, will you play The Sims if I buy it for you? I was like, and she was like, yeah, I guess so. So she played it for a couple weeks, and she's ditched it already. But it was nice to know that she had played a game. Yeah. I'll play it with you in the same room. Like, that's fine with me. But yeah, once I kind of taught her about the community and the landscape, and she didn't realize you could like make real friends with people online either. Like, some of my closest friends are online, and we've met up a couple times in person, and you pick up in the same spot when you just logged off. Like, it's the same thing.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
From people that there's a sense of community, but there's really a strong bond between people that are gaming, and it makes sense because obviously you enjoy something.
Yeah, like my very best friend from college. I mean, we'll talk once a week, but my best friend online, like, I bet he's messaged me since we've been sitting here. We just talk about. We'll talk all day. So teaching her stuff like that, she's way more understanding. It is still weird to talk about somebody that your spouse has never met, though, as like a super close friend.
Right.
Because again, I spend hours playing. I spend hours with my fiance Haley during the day, but then I also spend hours playing games, and when funny stuff happens, like, you build a relationship with somebody. So it's just cool to have like inside jokes and like explain it to the person you're dating and living with.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like the locker room. So when you're like in the locker room, because I was talking, is there in the NFL? Does your coach say, listen, at this time, no cell phone? Because mobile gaming's huge now too, right?
Oh yeah,
mobile gaming.
Right. I forgot. So COD launched their mobile app to play Call of Duty on your phone, and the guys figured out you could hook up your PlayStation controller to your phone through Bluetooth.
Right.
And I mean, half the locker room was all playing COD on controller. They were leaning over their lockers like this, just playing.
This is a practice or before game?
This was not before game. No. But like during the day and between meetings, we might have like 30 to 45 minutes in between, and they would just all be gaming like that. A lot of my teammates, the majority of them are on console and mobile. Very few guys I know have like a full gaming PC setup. And I try not to be elitist with it, but I mean, God, if you're not gaming on a PC, I don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Right. There's exclusive games that come out on PS, PlayStation and Xbox and stuff that people get a pass for, but you gotta game on a PC if you want the full experience, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
well, we often say like, I mean, when I say we, like people that are in the industry say that like all. And I know I don't ever like categorizing all, like everybody, because you can't speak for everybody. But for percentage-wise, do most of the guys game? Like when you're traveling, you're flying on a plane, and whether it's mobile, whether they bring their console with them, are most of the guys in the league, do you think, gaming, even if they're not like at the level
they do it to some capacity? Yeah. I think that's why it's not crazy to see players like Juju Smith-Schuster, like, playing on Twitch with big name, he played with Ninja during the Fortnite boom and stuff like that. That's why it's not crazy to see them in that kind of spotlight, because when we have downtimes in college, like everybody would just go back to their dorm and play on Xbox or the PlayStation. So it's nice to know that you can get adopted in the gaming community pretty easily, no matter what background you come from.
Yeah. Madden.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't play it.
But you're in it, aren't you?
I'm in it. You would think you would play a game that you're in.
Yeah.
People always tweet at me that they'll pick me up on their team and then bump my stats up for me. You know, I appreciate it because as a long snapper, I don't care if you're the best long snapper in the league. You're not going to get rated above a 70 at all. Like
Right.
I think I'm like a 54 or something like that.
Right.
So nobody's really going to play with you, but at least I can say I'm in a video game.
Yeah, which is super cool. And I've heard again that some guys that are in the NBA that are in the game don't play 2K at all.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm just not good at it. I don't like playing games that good. That's honestly why I don't play it much.
Well, I don't remember if I read this the other day or where I thought I saw it the other day, or I read it somewhere. That Madden. So we're talking Madden. That the guy who won it was a tournament. The guy who won it actually didn't throw a pass the entire tournament.
Oh, really?
So he won the entire tournament without ever throwing a pass. And the way he did it was by getting a punter as his quarterback. So he saved because I guess you have to spend a certain amount of money, like when you're the GM.
Oh,
And so
is that how the competitive
he saved his
Madden
money
works?
on a quarterback, which is a lot of money probably typically, and then he put that into his running back and boosted his running back, boosted his offensive line, and then did the same thing on the defensive side. And I was like, that's brilliant, man. Like,
that's something that's that's really cool. I had never thought.
Yeah, and I don't know if they had I don't know if he had Travis Henry or if it was like older running backs like Dickerson or something like that, but they couldn't stop him. The other teams that were playing him couldn't stop him, and he had enough. He had put the pieces in place that it actually worked.
One of my teammates in college, when he would play NCAA 14, he would play, and he beat everybody. I think he only lost twice when our freshman year. He would play as Virginia Tech because I guess they had the fastest players in the game that year, and then switch all of his receivers for like the fastest corners.
Okay.
And his players were so fast that when he ran this one play, nobody could actually catch their guys in coverage. So that's how he won. Wow. At the beginning of every game, he would take 5 minutes to switch his entire roster. But then he had played it so much that it took him like that quick to switch his whole roster around. But same thing you were saying, like it's just things you would never think of.
And that's one of those things and that's what football's all tactical, right? Like if you knew that, like if you were that guy and I knew going in that you did that, then I would change my entire roster to try to beat that. That's why football's so cool.
Yeah.
Right? Because you get strategy and tactics. So like looking ahead, obviously you're still working out and still training. How's it been like over the pandemic, like working out and training? It's a
little crazy. I bought a bunch of gym equipment, but it's all outside, so it's like hard to get out there. I mean, in South Florida, it can rain for a week straight, which it has.
You got it under cover?
Recently. I have like a tarp that I put over it. I looked at reviews. The stuff that I bought is fine being outside, but it's still just hard to get out there when it rains all day.
Yeah.
So now gyms are opening up, but it's hard to justify going back to a gym when I have all this equipment at my house. Yeah. So that's been tough, but like I said before, I'm just really glad that I've been able to actually snap. Long snappers, they need to be strong and fast enough to keep up. But at the end of the day, if you can't snap, you're not good. It doesn't matter how strong and fast you are. Yeah. So I'm honing in on that. Everybody, I think, is going to be one notch lower than the optimal.
That's what I think. That's what I thought when they were talking about bringing the NBA back for like the playoffs and stuff. I was like, that's going to be really interesting because
you're going to see a lot of guys who. You're going to see the guys who have discipline and a lot of guys who don't. Right. That's going to be the most evident on teams.
Yeah. But it's also chemistry. You can't. The chemistry just doesn't come overnight. That's why you have the playoffs at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and even working together. Yeah, as a team. I know there's groups of guys on every team that are working together, and I think more so regional guys, because I know there's a bunch of guys in Texas who are on the Texans and Dallas that have been working together, and then I know a bunch of guys in LA who live together. They're all on different teams, but they're all getting work together.
Right.
And like I told you, punters and kickers, we've all been getting together in South Florida because people have their houses down here for the off season.
Yeah, a lot of people live down here, man.
Yep.
So the 100 Thieves, you're wearing a 100 Thieves shirt.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I wanted to bring this up.
Yeah, man. So you got a favorite team? Like what's that?
So 100 Thieves is my favorite esports team. It mostly just started out because I really, really like their branding. The more I learned about them, the more I like them. Just the way that they kind of operate, and they kind of did esports a little bit differently than a lot of the teams. They were more like brand centric and streetwear, cool stuff like that. So during the middle of the season, the NFLPA had a thing for, they were going to do a Twitch Rivals tournament at the Super Bowl in Miami. So it was a Fortnite tournament with the top 10 NFL players got to play in this tournament at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm not a Fortnite player, but I tried to learn how.
Did KD play that? Kenyon Drake, did he play in that one? Do you know?
I'm not sure if he ranked high enough, but there were a good amount of guys.
Right.
So I tweeted at 2 of 100 Thieves Fortnite pros, CC and then Elevate, and they both hit me up, and I played a couple days with them, but
Nice.
I couldn't get to it was a point system, so the way they do ranked in Fortnite, that's how the NFLPA was keeping track of our points. And I was starting to get up there, but as the weeks went on, there were other players who were just they were actually good at Fortnite. I was basically just getting carried every single game.
Right.
I was like, at the end, I was like, man, I can't keep up. Like, I don't know how long I would have to play with this guy just killing everybody for me to. But in the end, I made a friend in CC. And,
So you're so connected with him.
Yeah, so I sent him a bunch of Dolphins gear, and he sent me his jersey. So he actually, it has his name on it. This was from their latest drop that they have, is like all black jersey.
I love that, man.
Yeah, so I was super psyched when I saw this in the mail. I was actually debating coming here wearing it because luckily the tag was like a clothespin, so I'm going to put it back on. I think I'm probably going to end up framing this for my office.
Nice.
But yeah, it was
Yeah,
super
to have
nice
it like
of him
behind you, you mean for all your streams? and
Yeah,
everything?
yeah, because it would be cool to have like a Dolphins jersey and then have this.
Yeah.
It was just super nice of him to send
Now,
this
is that
to me.
because you guys are connected that I mean, you said you liked the
Yeah.
brand before anyway.
Yeah.
But do you have like some other favorites, or is like 100 Thieves that's your club?
That's pretty much my favorite.
Okay.
I remember the only time I really ever followed another esports organization was in I think it was 2015. It was the European LCS, the League of Legends series.
Yeah.
I followed Fnatic
Okay.
because their entire season they went completely undefeated, and then went to Worlds and got completely smacked. So leading up, it was like, oh, finally a European team's gonna beat SKT,
team. Yeah.
and no, they killed it in the European League, completely undefeated, and then just got murdered in Worlds. So
crazy.
after that, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna follow another team.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so in like closing, and we were talking about the NFL. I got one last question for you about the NFL. It'll come to me. So, what are you doing right now, like with the house and your German Shepherd?
Oh yeah, I just got a new German Shepherd. I've been wanting one. That's kind of been my dream since a kid, is having like a legit German Shepherd. So we got he was over in the Czech Republic or wherever that is now. So he's
I'm part Czech.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So the guy that I bought him
Bratislava.
from is like came from there, and he's been training dogs for like 20, 30 years. And I didn't realize this till I started researching it, but I guess with a lot of the German Shepherds over here, the really red ones with the long hair, those are more Americanized. Those are show German Shepherds. And then the working line ones that you see work with police and military, those are, the working line are known as Czech German Shepherds, which I had no clue till a couple months ago. So I got a Czech German Shepherd, and this guy grew up, he was kind of a broker. He breeds them, but then he also has contacts overseas to get him over here. So we got one shipped over, and he's awesome. He's so high energy, and he's like fully trained, like protection wise too.
So you got him when he was like 6 months old? Or?
No, so that was the thing is I was talking to Peter, the guy I was going through, and he was like, I think there's a lot of ways you can mess up a dog. He was like, my suggestion, if it's your first German Shepherd, especially one like this, get it over a year old.
Okay.
It's still going to act like a puppy, which I was skeptical of, but since I got him, he's still a puppy
I
at
think they
heart.
do till they're like 2.
Yeah,
sometimes.
still such a puppy.
Yeah.
He's like running like crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. It's my first dog that's been like my dog, like my family owned a dog, and he has just such an insane personality. And when it's time to work, when we do like I'm drilling his obedience and stuff like that, I can just looking at this dog's eyes, like he's so smart, just through like how he's been bred and stuff like that, you can just see his mind working. It's insane to see. I've never seen a dog
awesome.
look like this before.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations, by the way.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was kind of my birthday gift.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know the last thing I want to ask you, just with the pandemic, with everything that's been going on, there's been a lot of athletes, not yourself because you're already kind of doing it, but so many that want to connect with their fan base, right? And they're looking at esports and gaming because it's such an easy way.
I think it's the best way to do it.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you have you done more? Are you still, like you said, you've got your niche now and you're gaming there? And do you really think, have you seen a bunch of other guys that are like not panicking but saying, man, I really got to get into this? Like, have there been some, like Juju's already doing it?
Yeah.
You're doing it and you're starting to get into a niche which people are starting to follow you. Do you think when you go back to camp or when you go back and you start with another team that you can hear like stories of 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that have gone and like, because you have a lot more time at home too, right? That have kind of transitioned and try to figure out this space. What can I do in this space?
Yeah. I think I made a pretty good case for myself when I was on the Dolphins. Go to Taybor if you have a question about gaming, basically, just because I was always talking about it. It's still, even though I don't stream as much as I used to, like it's still something that I'm a part of. I'm a part of a pretty good community on Twitch. So, yeah, I mean, I still think guys are a little skeptical of sitting in front of a computer and doing that stuff. But like I said before, I really honestly believe it is the number one way, other than going out and shaking people's hands. It's the number one way from the comfort of your own home to interact with fans. Twitter can get overwhelming, but if you're streaming to even 100 people and there's a chat room, it's so much easier to just have a conversation. There's its own risks, and you're streaming live, like there's nobody to cut up what you're saying, and if you mess up, like it's out there for good. So I think some guys are a little bit nervous about that, but with the right media training, it's not that hard to not say something stupid.
And as we're talking about it, I mean, you don't have to be a streamer, right? You can be a content creator.
Yeah.
And if you're a content
YouTube videos. Yeah. You can still record yourself for, I mean, I did this at one point. You can record yourself playing a game for 3 hours, send it to a YouTube editor, and boom, you have like a week's worth of YouTube content and no risk of you saying anything controversial.
Yeah, because you can always get a final approval over that.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I was just thinking is that when you think about Hard Knocks, because Hard Knocks is supposed to start again, I think sometime soon, you could do something similar to Hard Knocks along the gaming side. Like, you know what I mean? Just come from the storytelling and the narrative as a professional athlete. I don't care if it's football player, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever, but your gaming side of it, because the gaming industry is always looking for and pushing the envelope for content.
Yeah.
You know?
One of my a fellow Michigan State Spartan, Ariel Powers, she won the WNBA championship last year.
I just linked in, and we just connected on LinkedIn.
Oh, really?
Like a week ago. She's going to be
that's my girl.
She's going to be on the pod.
That's my girl.
Yeah, I love her. I can show you. I mean, right before you came on, like
tell her,
45 minutes before you came on.
We used to hang out, go to parties, go to.
Yeah, it's not on there right now, but 45 minutes. That's awesome, man. I'll send as soon as we're done. I'll send her a quick text.
Yeah. So she's made a huge splash into the esports industry, and she's doing awesome. I mean, she does like mukbang, like eating stuff on her girlfriend's page, and she's streaming all the time. She's connected with like Cheddar Esports and all stuff like that. So. It's awesome seeing her do it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think once there's people like yourself and like her and Juju, and there's people out there that are leading, then I think it makes it a little bit easier for somebody else that's not quite sure what to do, how to get involved.
Yeah.
Maybe I do like to stream and just talk for 8 or 10 hours straight. Every day.
There's not a lot of people who could do. Right. I mean, but that's the other thing is, some people can do YouTube content and push out crazy content, but I've seen really, really famous, successful YouTubers come to Twitch and they just flop and they flounder because they can be entertaining for a 10-minute video a couple times a week, but being somewhat entertaining, you don't have to be crazy YouTube personality all the time, but capturing somebody for 2, 4, 6, 8 hours at a time, that is not easy to do. Because when I would stream and Haley would come home from work, I would turn off my big ring light and my eyes would be burning, and I would lay on the couch, and she's like, why are you acting tired? I was like, I was just talking for 8 hours straight. Like,
people don't realize when you're on. My wife's an actor, and when you're on, you have to be on. You know what I mean? You're not just sitting there just kind of hanging out.
And your community knows you. They want you to be chill and relaxed, but it's like
It's a lot.
I can't just sit there in silence and play this
Yeah, it's
game.
funny you say that because I think probably one of the top content creators in the world right now, Mr. Beast.
Mm-hmm.
I think during the pandemic he did a live rock paper scissors tournament to raise money. And I think I could be wrong, but I think they raised over $20 million. Like they raised some kind of crazy amount of money.
He has an insane price tag with whatever he does. Yeah.
So he had like all these different stars and celebrities, rock paper, like you and I would do it, and they were streaming it, or they were. But he had to be the one to do the commentary the entire time. And I didn't see it, but I heard, and I love him, by the way. My kids love him, my wife loves him. I love the things he does. But it was a little bit awkward at times because they're used to them, Dude Perfect. You know, those guys are used to doing great content, but they they film a ton and then they edit it down.
Yeah.
You know, when you're live, you're live.
That's it.
Yeah, man.
That's it.
And the same thing with this podcast, man. This is a podcast, not live, so I never worry. I'm just go, and if something gets screwed up, we'll just edit it out, man.
Yeah. It's
So streaming,
it's so much fun. Yeah.
But you enjoy the streaming.
Yeah. You know, like I said, when I do stream, I want to do it right. But there's some times where I'm up later than I should be, but I don't want to go to bed, so I'll just flip on my stream, and I call it cozy hours. And people come in who know me from my streams, and then the community I run around with on Twitch, they'll come in and they'll ask me questions, and I'll tell them like college stories for like 2 hours. You got a ton, life experiences, and we all just sit there and tell our stories, and it's super cozy, it's super comfy, it's really late at night. There's nothing else anybody should be doing. It's just that's my favorite thing to do, honestly, is just those kind of off the wall, not your usual playing a game. It's
and sometimes that stuff does stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we're here right now, hip hop's over there. Hip hop's energy levels are completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But it all resonates with a certain crowd. So is there anything, man, that we, because there's always a ton, right? But is there anything that we didn't talk about that you kind of wanted to touch?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
All right, man.
I think that's good.
It's good then.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over.
Appreciate it.
It's great to see you, Taybor.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I'd like to thank Taybor for sharing his time, experience, and knowledge with us today. Although I don't normally think about the role of the long snapper in a football game, learning everything that goes into the job of this specialist throughout a game gave me a much deeper understanding and appreciation for the time it takes to master this craft and the ability that is required to handle high-pressure situations at the highest level. It's such a thankless job, but critical to the success of every single punt, extra point, and field goal. You can listen to Taybor again now, and you can also find time-stamped segments of the show, links to his social pages, and more information about his projects and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms and become a part of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive back into the library of previous All About the Game pods to hear from some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like CEO of Ghost Punch, Rick Daniels, President of the Tampa Association of Gaming, Marcus Blockchain Howard, and founder of UDA Global Group, Emil Bodenstein, just to name a few. You can find all of these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please like, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach the gaming community to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next All About the Game podcast.